The Oklahoma Sooners and Brent Venables have decided to mutually part ways with defensive coordinator Ted Roof. And although this probably isn't shocking to a lot of Sooner fans, it's making its waves around college football and especially on the recruiting trail. We're going to dive into the replacement. That's what we're going to call him because he's already pretty much all but been named the replacement. And we're also going to talk about what some recruits' reactions have been to Ted Roof being, I guess, dismissed, mutually parted ways, however you want to say it, from the Oklahoma Sooners. But if this is your first time tuning in, because there were 38,000 of you last week, thank you for last month. Thank you for tuning into the PG show where we talk about all things college football. You know it. We got to talk about Oklahoma a little bit more because it's a team that I love to talk about and watch. And it's a team that you love to hear about and a team that you guys love to talk about. That's why you guys are here. So take care of a few house cleaning deals. Make sure you hit that like. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. I think like 78% of you that watch my videos are reoccurring people. So you come back multiple times a month to watch my video and you're not subscribed. So just check that box down there. Make sure you're subbed. And let's dive into it. So stay with me here. We're going to walk through the timeline and how this impacts Oklahoma and how it impacts them on the recruiting trail. But it was first reported by 247 Sports, Matt, and I believe it's pronounced Zients, that OU and Brent Venables were parting ways with Ted Roof after 2 seasons. 2 seasons. It's all it took in Norman, Oklahoma for BV to decide to move on. After Venables took over full-time for Oklahoma, and it was shortly announced after that Zac Alley was going to potentially be the replacement for Ted Roof. And yeah, I mean, pretty much right after he was fired or mutually parted ways, however you want to say it, there were a lot of names that were thrown out that people wanted to watch out for, right? Brandon Hall was one that made a lot of sense. He was the defensive coordinator out there at Troy before he came to Oklahoma. Zach Arnett, the former head coach of Mississippi State, took over after Mike Leach passed away. And you had the 2 Georgia linebacker coaches. I heard that one thrown out there. Thought that one was a little crazy, but hey, the rumors were out there. You heard Zac Alley. Of course, people were throwing out Jim Leonard's name, but come on, if you're an Oklahoma fan, that's a pipe dream in and of itself. And then you got Brian Odom, a former linebackers coach for USC and Oklahoma as well. So, and one that, let's be honest, if you offered him the job, he probably would have taken it because, yeah, that man with Brent Venables, talk about an elite linebacker room. But it's not going to be Brian Odom. It's not going to be Arnett. It's not going to even be an internal hire. I mean, I even asked some of you guys on Twitter, and some people threw out like Jay Valai and Todd Bates, which, although they're good coordinators at their positions, I'm not sure that they're ready to take that next step to a defensive coordinator. Now, again, as the hours waned on, it became pretty apparent, hey, BV's going to hire Zac Alley as the defensive coordinator per multiple sources. So the question is, who is Zac Alley and what is he going to be able to bring to Oklahoma? And how is this going to impact recruiting? And I want to start with the recruiting impact of the release of Ted Roof, because I don't think a lot of people understand just how good of a recruiter Ted Roof was. And I actually had a recruit in the 2025 cycle reach out to me and was like, what's going on? Ted Roof was the best relationship that I had at Oklahoma. And I had a similar 2026 guy reach out to me. And, you know, they might have not seen the bigger picture because they said, well, Brent Venables was running the show. Like, they know Brent Venables was kind of helping call the plays. But what they don't understand is Brent Venables was trying to get out of calling the plays and being 100% involved in this defense. He wanted to be able to rely on his DC to be able to do the job that he has done so well for so many years so that he can be the CEO and kind of just run this joint, right? Oklahoma, not an easy place to run and manage. And when you're trying to be a defensive coordinator and do all of that, it's not going to be easy. Lincoln Riley on the offense, completely different story. You saw how him running the offense, not being a good CEO, turned out for Oklahoma, right? Brent Venables doesn't want to repeat a similar pattern. So it was important that Ted Roof was able to really come in and take the reins, and it just didn't work out. And you saw BV had to get more involved in the defense, where you did see an improved Oklahoma defense this year. Like, I don't want to discredit that. It was back in last year, you were like 96th overall in total defense. And then this year, I think you moved up into like the 70s. Scoring defense, you moved up into the 40s. So Oklahoma did better this year. I actually have the numbers pulled up right here. You ranked 98th in scoring defense in his first year, 121st in total defense, and you improved in both categories. So 46th in points per game, and you had 78th in yards per game. And when you look at the third down conversion percentage, Oklahoma did really well. Hence, look at the goal line stops that you had at Texas. The one that you should have had against UCF, but a Jaron Kanik penalty ended up ruining that for Oklahoma. And then you also had one against, was it Oklahoma State? I believe you had one against Oklahoma State too. You had two in there that were not ruined by penalties, right? So you definitely saw an improvement, but it wasn't enough going into the SEC to say you've taken enough in a jump to go out there and be elite. So Zac Alley was a former student assistant at Clemson under BV and Dabo Swinney from 2011 to 2014. He originally played on the offensive line and the defensive line in college for, I think it was the Charlotte 49ers. And then he moved up to a graduate assistant from 2015 to 2018 while BV was still the defensive coordinator there. And then in 2019 got hired on as the inside linebackers coach at Boise State. In 2020, got hired on as the offensive linebacker or outside linebackers coach at Boise State. And then in 2021, joined Billy Napier's staff as the defensive coordinator and linebackers coach at Louisiana Monroe. You guys know the story. Napier went and took the job at the Florida Gators. He got his opportunity and a crack at a defensive coordinator job at Jacksonville State from 2022 to 2023, where you really started to see him shine and you really started to see him get attention as being a 29-year-old, as one of the brightest young defensive minds in college football, right? And you saw him multiple times in interviews kind of flash back to his time with BV and saying, hey, like, this is how much I've learned from him. This is where a lot of my defensive creativity is inspired from, which when you look at BV and what he's looking for a young guy like what Zac Alley is able to bring in terms of being a little bit more creative. Now, the question is Zac Alley going to be able to see the offense as well as Brent Venables did when he was the defensive coordinator on the sidelines? Because I think that's going to be one of the biggest misses that you see from BV to any other defensive coordinator he might hire. You've heard Sark talk about it. You've heard other offensive coordinators and head coaches talk about it. They believe BV is able to sign steal, and that's not picking it up in the film room. He's able to do it on the field. They believe BV has such a good sight about what's plays are being ran on the field and the signs that are given that maybe by the second half, he knows what plays you're running, which is why his defenses are so good. And that's not illegal. You can completely pick up the signs during the game. You can learn those signs during the game, and you can operate off those. We've seen Baker Mayfield do that in the NFL, specifically this year, where he literally walked into halftime in his locker room and said, I know their signs. We're not losing this game, right? And sure enough, what did the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went after to do? Dominated the second half on the offensive side of the ball, and they ended up coming out with the win on that one. So the question is he going to be able to see the field as much as Brent Venables did? And then also, is he going to be able to recruit at as high of a level as some of the other guys on the staff are? I mean, you look at what Todd Bates has already done. He's already landed a 5-star defensive lineman here at Oklahoma, which is an interior guy, something we haven't seen in a while. Miguel Chavis has landed a 5-star edge rusher. You've seen Jay Valai and Brandon Hall bring in a haul. You see what I did there? Of top 100 players, specifically at the defensive back position. And I mean, Ted Roof and Brent Venables got a Lewis Carter, a Sammy Omosigo. You got Jaron Kanik to somehow follow you over here to Oklahoma. So, hey, Zac Alley, listen, Oklahoma fans have this bar of what we expect in recruiting. The days of losing Sammy Brown or an Anthony Hill Jr., which, mind you, Oklahoma came second in that race too, only behind Texas. And it was a close second. So Ted Roof and Brent Venables were doing their thing in that race as well. So the days of losing these five-star linebackers, Oklahoma fans want it to be over. Zac Alley, Oklahoma fans are going to have that bar set. So, guys, I want to hear from you, and I want to hear what y'all's thoughts are, because obviously a lot of you guys wanted to see this change last year. It happens this year. While Oklahoma was still improving, but Brent Venables didn't think it was improving enough. So I need you guys to join the discussion by jumping down in the comments below, giving me your thoughts. And if you guys haven't already, make sure you hit that like and hit that subscribe button.